what's your sort of main reaction to the autumn statement today, then?
Well, obviously, this was an autumn statement for growth. It was about backing business and supporting people. We know we've had a really difficult year, but because of the difficult decisions that the Chancellor has taken, that the Prime Minister has taken, we've managed to halve inflation, which means that we've been able to take the measures we have today, like giving a tax cut to 27 million employed people.
Obviously, the cut to national insurance, 2 percentage points off national insurance, is going to make a difference to people.
It really will, £450 a year on average.
The overall tax burden is still going up next year, right?
So the steps that we've taken today will bring it down by 0.7%. That is significant. Obviously, we've had a couple of years where we've had to spend a lot of money, or £400 billion on COVID, £100 billion on supporting people's energy. Those were the right things to do. I think people at home would recognise that. And we've got to pay for them. But this was still the biggest tax-cutting event since the 1980s, and that is significant.
But the tax burden is still going up next year.
So if you look at what we've done overall, so for the average worker, taxes will be going up on average, due to today and everything we've done since 2010, by £1,000 a year. But it is true that some of the highest paid will see their taxes going up still, but that is a decision that we've made. We are really supporting those who are working, who are the lowest paid, and you've seen that through everything we've done today, and additionally what we've done with benefits.
It's not just... Look, I don't want to sort of, the national insurance cut, that's a cut, like you say, It's significant, but the freeze in income tax thresholds is a big deal, the tax drag, right? It means 4 million of the lowest paid people are also going to be pulled into paying tax. I mean, I remember David Cameron in the coalition, he took 3.2 million people out of paying income tax, and now Rishi Sunak's put 4 million back in. What does David Cameron say about this?
We do not shy away from the fact we had to take difficult decisions a year ago, right? And that is why we've seen inflation come down. But that is also
rich,
why...
though, isn't it, to say,
but that is also why we've done things today.
In modern history, and then to say that actually more people pay more tax.
Real incomes, for example, for those on the national living wage, have gone up by 30%, right? We've increased the national living wage today by a huge amount, by 9.8%, which means it will go to £11.44 for someone on that. And this is all because of the things that we've done. And if you contrast that to the Labour Party who still want to borrow £28 billion extra a year, that will push up mortgages, that will push up people's taxes. There's a real difference between us and them. And even today, Rachel Reeves was saying that she would unfreeze thresholds. She was implying that she would unfreeze, difficult to say, unfreeze thresholds today in the Commons, and that will cost £45 billion a year. Where are they proposing to get this money? There is a real difference between us and the Labour Party.
And we've spoken a lot about tax. I just want to talk to you about public services.
Of course.
Because it feels like you've penciled in a massive squeeze in public services once inflation's taken into account. And I just want to show you this graph just to try and illustrate what I'm trying to say. So this is the projected spending in government departments. The yellow line there at the top is a projected line from March, and the blue line is today. So you've effectively taken out £19 billion in public services.
What does escape mean? So so this is my area. So in terms of the amount that we're spending on public services, it has gone up by 2.6% since the spending review in real terms. That's the whole amount of public spending. And by the end of what we call the forecast period, so that's 28-29, it would have gone up by £85 billion in real terms. Now, of course, within that, we've made some choices. We have prioritised the NHS. NHS spending is up by a third since 2019, and that's excluding COVID spend.
We all know, you know, and I know, that what you're projecting post the election really means a huge squeeze in non-protected departments, and that's things like the courts, that's things like capital budgets, that's things like transport. You know that.
So
that's
we're increasing. So
yes,
you're right in terms of choices. We're increasing spending by 1% in real terms overall. So that's really important for people at home to understand. Now, within that, there will be decisions. We will prioritise certain areas. We will prioritise the NHS. We will prioritise schools. That is really important. But spending is going up in real terms, and it's very important to remember that.
It feels a little bit like it's a kind of scorched earth policy for an incoming Labour government.
I mean,
no one expects you to stick to these spending plans.
1%
or any
real,
government.
1% real is an expansion in spending. That is a big expansion in spending, 1% real. £85 billion more in real terms by 28-29. There is questions as to the growth of public spending versus the growth of GDP overall. But we can be absolutely clear that public spending is going up in real terms.
OK. Now, you've been brought into the Treasury inner sanctum, shall we say. You kind of been made Chief Secretary to the Treasury. So I just wonder if you could kind of take me behind the scenes a bit. How much of a backseat driver is Rishi Sunak?
Look, I have worked in government for a long period of time. So I used to be a special advisor in Number 10 under David Cameron. Delighted to see him back. And there is always very close working. And it's really important there is close working between Number 10 and the Treasury. And that will always be the case where you have a united team. And that is what we do have now, a united team. We've got
so is Rishi Sunak kind of in and out, looking over Jeremy Hunt's shoulder saying, oh, I'd do this a bit differently when I was in the job?
No, but they are working together, as you would expect, and people at home would expect the Prime Minister and Chancellor to be working very closely together on a fiscal event.
And then my other question, right, on last night's show, we spoke to Harriet Baldwin, who used to be a minister in the Treasury, and she said that even when she was a Treasury Minister, she didn't actually know what was going to be in the autumn statement, the entire autumn statement, before it happened. Is that still the case now?
Some bits are kept away, and obviously each of the individual ministers have individual bits which they are working on. But obviously it's the Chancellor and Prime Minister who see the whole view of the whole thing.
Did you see the whole thing before?
I don't want to go into what I did and didn't see.
Was it a surprise?
I don't want to go into what I did and didn't see. But yes, it's true that some bits are seen by certain ministers, not by others.
Fascinating stuff. Laura Trott, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being on the programme.